Near term, definitely we're going to see some very important tests on China's medical systems and how quickly they can really roll off the elderly's vaccination rate, and particularly to provide domestically the medical supplies, medical resources in the rural areas. But I think this round of opening is a good intention for the overall market domestically in China, also on the international market to start to accept and welcome the second largest economy in the world to back on track of its own growth trajectory. But the near term, you're going to see and experience a bumpy road, definitely for China. And now I see, you both mentioned the travel restrictions introduced, broadly speaking, in some of the countries, in the Western or developed markets. That is expected. I think, even China, when they announced on 26th of December, the new COVID measure, they also introduced the last, step is you have to test negative 48 hours before you go back to China. I think certain measure introduced is reasonable. It's for certain countries to become more cautiously, welcoming this reopening. But I do agree with you. The near term, you will see some bumpy, road ahead for China and also the rest of the ours. Most noticeable, I think, for China themselves is, on the back of the surging infection cases in China, the labor shortage would be an issue, and potentially, the disruptions on the labor market and also on the supply chains is all going to be a top topic to watch in the coming weeks. I think in the near term, this can put some pressure on China's near-term growth as well.
Do you think if any of these risks that you talked about materialize in a meaningful way, there's any going back for President Xi, or is the path forward going in one direction when it comes to reopening, when it comes to these COVID restrictions, or is there a possibility that we see another change in policy and a reconsideration of the reopening?
If you look back the history, China tend to implement the policy and get it done. So it's very rarely they have a rollback, but this is obviously no history can be a guidance to these scenarios. But from what they have been announcing, how quickly they have been, updating their COVID policy from November and then 2 announcements in December, it shows the government's determination of reopening, number one. Number two is I think they are fully expecting such spike of cases potentially happening in China. I do see, a lot of the, senior officials or scientists in China came out giving guidance on how you should protect yourself, how you should treat it yourselves. People I know in China get infected, how they should be, take treatments and take the time to recover from it. If you ask me, judging purely from how historically the Chinese regulators, Chinese policymakers, or even the government officials introducing policy and roll it out and get it done, that's look highly unlikely they're going to roll back to the strict of a zero COVID policy. One thing, though, I don't know if it might feels a little awkward, but the marginal relief at least is January. It tend to be a bit of a heavy loaded in national holidays. In China, slightly different from you and I. They have very, broad national holidays allowance. January have 9 days out of the 28 days allowed national holidays. That 32% of national holidays is loaded in January. So if people is not feeling well, they're taking time off from the workforce. It's kind of less impactful to China's own economy because the productivity is relatively low in January anyhow.
Yeah, so
it's very important. Yes, go ahead, please.
Sorry, Xiaolin. So I suppose then that means that even the travel restrictions, which you've said, of course, are to be expected, aren't necessarily going to be a major a stumbling block or delay to the progress of trying to get to the Asian economy and China specifically then to get back on a positive growth path. For now, it just does give them a little more time to get back on their feet.
I would agree with that because at the end of the day, people, when the 26th of December, when they announced the new COVID measure, basically they remove all the controls altogether. The surge of foreign flights and destination to travels, those words, they showed in search engine gone up by 820%. It just shows people are very keen in China domestically too keen to go out, keen to back, on their feet for their normal lifestyle, so on and so forth. And the government is letting them to do so. But being cautious to travel internationally, I think is good for both.